Does size really matter? She had slept with enough men to know exactly what she wanted. Or at least, that's what she told herself, because every time she became intimate with someone new, the same question eventually appeared in her mind. What's your size? She never asked it directly. It wasn't something she consciously planned to think about. It simply appeared. A quiet calculation, a private curiosity, and sometimes a judgment. She hated that about herself, because she was supposed to be smarter than that. She was educated, successful, independent, and ambitious. She had graduated from the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, with a degree in international relations, and built the kind of career most people only dreamed about. Her work had taken her into international business, where she attended meetings with executives, traveled between countries, and learned how to read people before they finished their first sentence. By her early 30s, she had everything she had once imagined she wanted: a beautiful apartment, a respected career, financial independence, friends in different countries, a passport filled with stamps, and an endless stream of men who found her attractive. Yet somehow, she had never found love. There had been plenty of intimacy. Sometimes it was simply sex. And honestly, she didn't feel guilty about that. She was an adult. She believed two consenting people could enjoy each other without pretending it was something more. Sometimes the connection was purely physical. Sometimes it was fun. Sometimes it was exactly what she needed. And sometimes she dated a man because she wondered if he could become something more: a future husband, a father, someone she could build a life with. She wasn't searching for perfection. She just didn't know what she was searching for. So, without realizing it, she began creating a checklist. Was he attractive? Was he confident? Was he intelligent? Did he have ambition? Was he kind? Did he make her laugh? And eventually, was the physical chemistry good enough? She never wanted to admit how important that last question had become. There was Daniel, a brilliant attorney. He could talk about politics and international affairs for hours, but he never remembered the little things she told him about her childhood. Then there was Michael, a successful entrepreneur who made her feel incredibly desired when they were alone. But whenever she needed emotional support, he suddenly became busy.comma. And then there was David. He was almost perfect on paper. Educated, successful, polite. His parents adored her. Her friends loved him. Everyone kept telling her, asterisk, you should marry this man. Asterisk, asterisk. So she tried. She really did. But one night, lying beside him, she realized something terrifying. She didn't want to be there. Not because anything was wrong with him. There simply wasn't enough of something. She couldn't name it. So she went back to dating, and the question followed her. What's your size? Sometimes the answer was impressive. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes the physical connection was incredible. And she thought, maybe this is what I've been missing. But then morning came, and she would lie, beside a man who had just held her close, and realized she felt completely alone. That was when she started wondering whether she had been asking the wrong question all along. She just didn't know what the right question was. Until she met Alex. It happened at a charity event in Beverly Hills. She almost didn't go. She had been working late and was exhausted, but a colleague convinced her to attend. The ballroom was full of expensive dresses, tailored suits, champagne, and people introducing themselves by their job titles. Alex was standing near a window. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't surrounded by people. He was simply watching the room. She noticed him because he seemed completely comfortable not being noticed. Eventually, their eyes met. He smiled. A few minutes later, they were talking. He asked what she did. She told him. He asked where she had studied. She told him. Then he asked, asterisk, are you happy? She laughed. Comma. That's a very personal question for a first conversation. I know. And what if I'm not? Then I suppose that's more interesting. She stared at him. No man had asked her that before. They talked for almost 2 hours. Not about sex. Not about money. Comma. Not about careers. They talked about travel. Comma. Family. Fear, the strange feeling of being successful and still wondering what you're doing with your life. When she finally went home, she realized something. She hadn't once thought about his body. She had been thinking about his mind. That should have been a relief. Instead, it frightened her, because physical attraction was easy. Emotional attraction was dangerous. 2 weeks later, they had dinner, then another dinner, then a weekend together, and eventually they became intimate. She was nervous, not because she hadn't done this before. She had, but because this time she actually cared what happened afterward. As they kissed, that familiar question appeared again. What's your size? For one brief second, she caught herself thinking about it. Then Alex stopped. He looked into her eyes. Are you okay? She took a breath. Yes, you seem far away. She almost laughed. Far away. She had spent years learning how to be physically close to men, while keeping the most vulnerable parts of herself completely protected. She had become an expert at intimacy without vulnerability. And suddenly, someone had noticed. She touched his face. I'm just thinking. About what? She hesitated. Then she smiled. Something very stupid. Tell me. She took another breath. Do you ever wonder if physical compatibility matters too much? Alex smiled softly. It matters. She waited. But it's not the thing that makes you stay. She looked at him. You can have incredible chemistry with someone you don't trust, he said. You can want someone desperately and still know they're wrong for you. He reached for her hand. And then there's the person who makes you feel safe, understood, desired, and completely yourself. He paused. That's different. Something inside her shifted. Not dramatically, not like in a movie. It was quieter than that, like a door opening. She had spent years measuring men, their appearance, their bodies, their sexual compatibility, as if love were an equation, as if the perfect man could be calculated. But there was one thing she had never measured. How did she feel when she was with him? Did she feel safe enough to be vulnerable? Could she laugh with him on an ordinary Tuesday? Could she trust him when life became difficult? Suddenly, those things seemed far more important than anything she had once put on her list. And perhaps that was the answer she had been searching for all along. Months passed. Alex didn't become perfect. He annoyed her. He sometimes said the wrong thing. They argued. They misunderstood each other. Real life began to replace the fantasy. And strangely, that was when she fell in love. Because love wasn't the absence of disappointment. It was choosing to understand each other after the disappointment. One evening, they were lying together after making love. She rested her head against his chest. For a moment, she remembered the woman she had been years earlier. The woman who had thought she knew exactly what she wanted. She smiled. Alex noticed. What? Nothing. You're smiling. She looked at him. I was just thinking about a question I used to ask myself. What question? She hesitated. Then she laughed. Never mind. No, now you have to tell me. She looked into his eyes. Does size really matter? Alex smiled. Sometimes. She raised an eyebrow. Really? He kissed her forehead. But not nearly as much as you thought. She laughed. And for the first time, the question didn't feel important anymore, because she finally understood something. The body could create attraction. Sex could create pleasure. Chemistry could create desire. But none of those things could guarantee love. Love was something else. It was the person who noticed when your smile wasn't real. The person who stayed when life became inconvenient. The person who wanted you not only when you looked beautiful, but when you were tired, sick, angry, insecure, or afraid. The person who could make you feel desired without making you feel like an object. And perhaps the greatest intimacy wasn't being completely naked with someone. Perhaps it was being completely known and still being wanted. She had spent years asking, "What's your size?" But eventually, she learned to ask a much more important question. What's the size of his heart? And that turned out to matter more than everything else.